In the last video, we were working on the Cashbook, the refactored Cashbook module, and we were at the point of implementing the drop downs when we noticed that this was not being fed. So I paused the other video and did some investigation. Fortunately, there was really nothing wrong with the um, drop down. It's just that the framework has a default feature that anytime the number of items in a drop down is more than a particular amount, I think it's 28 or 30 or thereabout, the first thing you will notice is that this will change to a search. And instead of doing the drop down like this, it will pop it up. Now I've adjusted it. The default behavior was for it to come empty because probably the records were in thousands. So you need to first search and click search. Put a text to search with and click search. So at the time in the other video when I thought that the data was not coming, data was there. All I needed to do was just search for it, and it will now bring the result of the search. So I had to go and switch on the fact that yes, regardless of the fact that there are more records there, but I still wanted to display all. So I will show you where I did that. Come to the application model. It's important to say that if you take your time to study this application model, there are a lot of settings that you might not need to use code for that you can find here. So you can see this is the cash book, the detailed view of the cash book transaction view model. So normally it was in auto, the lookup editor mode. So I just put it all items with search. That's what I did. So it was just a very simple problem, nothing that had to do with all the codes that I was looking for. So, okay, every drop down is working apart from the budget code. So this is the next one we need to work with. Then once we are done with that, we will now work on the saving the record. Once you click a button, we are going to put on this interface, just like the way we did this. So we're still going to put this button on that interface. So let's look into what how we bring data to this place. Now, one of the first things that we want to do is that I have actually gone ahead to do it. I've extracted the logic that brings this data into a reusable class. Now, this sorry. Oh, okay. Now, there are certain conditions that normally prompts data into this drop down. Now, this I've met the conditions. That's why. First of all, you must in accounting the reason why we're doing this here is essentially that you want to spend on capital expenditure. So capital expenditure must be first selected, and the date must be a date that the budget for that year is in the system. So if I use a date after 2000 and like for example, if I put this one to 2021 20 now, I know there's no budget for that year in the system. So okay, this one is still displaying the fact that let me, so you can see it didn't come with it. So it is actually this drop down. On the select of this drop down, that is when we want the system to go and use the date here with the conditions here to populate the drop down. So it is this drop down that triggers the fetching of data into this list with the following conditions. So if I even go back here now, you can see now there's no data here. If I go back here now and put it back to the date that has uh, data, I mean budget data, I won't still see any data here because this thing needs to go back in withdrawal mode. So even if I come here and change to deposit, I shouldn't still see data. But if I come back here now and change this to withdrawal, because normally when you want to buy an asset, you must withdraw from the bank. So now it will ask for the budget where you want to fund the capital expenditure from. So those are the conditions. So you can see now where we need to write our code. It is on the drop down of this item that we need to go and tell the system to use these three criteria to um, get the budget. So let's go ahead and do that. Now, I have written the function that gets the budget. It requires who you are, the logged in user, which is used to get the budget of your own location, which is your own agency. Then, if you remember, when we were implementing the view controller, the view of the controller, there was this property that I declared. I think it was the, yes, show budget picker. Now, part of the interface for the view is that the presenter will tell you when to show the budget or not. So this is these functions will be called by the presenter in its internal implementation, and you are expected to act on it. So I have put a signal here to collect the budget, whether we should show the budget or not. So one of the function, the parameters to pass in is the user ID, whether the budget should be shown or not, and the date, so that we can go and get the budget for that year. So right now, I haven't noticed that. We'll go back to the view controller and specifically wait here. This is where we need to, because it is when you have chosen the transaction type that we will now fetch the budget. So we come here, current object dot budget item list is equals to the factory is a static class. So a static class, you don't need to instantiate it. So the user is security system dot current user. Then the show budget is now this variable that we've expected the presenter to tell us whether to show the budget or not. Then the current object and the reference date. Now, let me do if current object dot. Okay, there's no need. I wanted to find out whether the date is nullable, so it will always return something. So once the system does not find the budget there, so this is like the um, only code we need to implement. And anytime we fetch the new budget, anytime there's a fetch of the budget, we want to clear the budget code, which is a structure that we can set to null. So let's see function S6. For me, I feel by the time you download the code um, of this project from GitHub, I feel this code is clean and more understandable in terms of the deliverables we want to achieve on the screen. And I also did something behind. Please, it's very important. Anytime you subscribe to an event in the on the deactivate, you need to unsubscribe. So subscribe is plus and unsubscribe is minus. So make sure you do it for all the events you have subscribed for. So let's do this. Sorry, let's start with the positive capital expenditure. Okay, so you can see that other setting of that property at play now. Because I have chosen capital expenditure, the number of items coming is more than the threshold. So it has hidden the records. It's not that it doesn't fetch it. If I try to do, let's say, Moto now, you see. So this is what happened in the other instance where the cash book was not showing. It wasn't that it wasn't working. So right now, let me go and switch off this behavior. But before I do that, let's test what we wanted to achieve. So we also need to choose the date and put the date of 2018. Then let me now choose withdrawal. Same thing. You can see default behavior at work now. So it's actually working. So let me go and turn off all those behaviors on all these drop down. And by default, I want to put the drop downs to be pop up for all of them instead of this normal one. You know. So let me go and do that straight to the application model. So for the budget codes, auto, all items, classification, all items, customer, all search with items, transaction heads. Transaction type, we can leave it at that one since it's just two items that will be in the drop down, deposit and withdrawal. Let's choose a date that doesn't have budget and choose withdrawal. We don't expect to see the budget. But if we come and change this to 18 and activate this back deposit, we shouldn't see the budget. By the time we come and choose withdrawal, the budget will be shown. So the data entry input fields is complete. The next thing is for us to put the button that will save this record here, and um, let's do that now. Um, Now I am going to go to the designer view of this detail view now. Let me open where I have done it before. Okay, okay. In the former one, what I did was the button was on the model, because you can actually put a button right on top from the model view. So if you come here under functions, by declaring a public method on your view, on your model, on your business object, and decorating it with action, it will automatically put a button for you on the interface. So, but now I am not doing anything on the model. The agreement was that our view model was just going to contain the properties required to deliver the UI, no logic. So in this scenario now, what I'm going to do for what we're doing now, since this is the controller, all you need to do is to bring a button and drag it and put it on the controller. Sorry, that's not the right controller. We'll close this. This is the controller we're talking about, which is the transaction view model detail view controller, which is this page. So come here, put a simple action. We need to scope the action. So I can copy, I will continue to emphasize the importance of this scoping so that you don't get unexpected behaviors. The framework has an architecture that uses open close principle as part of its implementation. So modification to the application is by adding classes, not really modifying classes. You'll be adding new classes and you're actually modifying by adding. So you need to tell the framework precisely where you want each of your classes to be operational. So we have scoped this button to this controller and by extension to the view. So let's call this one create new dashbook trans. Better to have long names. So let's call it create. There's no need to ask to prompt for that. And I would like to put an image here. So what I'll do is there are two places you can set that image, but I always like to do that somewhere else, which I will show you later on. So when this button is clicked, because we have already implemented the view, which is connected to the things happening on the UI, the only thing we need to do here is tell the presenter to save. Now, if there's an error, the presenter is going to talk to the view through this message. I mean, this property. It will throw an exception through it. So once we are successful, what we want to do is to navigate away from this view. So let me get the code. We want to be able to move back to the list view. So where did I use? Okay, so it's view. No, we can't do view dot close. We have to navigate to the list view. Yes, so this is what we're going to do. We're going to create the object space of type this, right? Then we want to go to its collection source. This is how to open up a list view. If you look at all the scenarios we've been doing so far, we've been using code to intercept things that will take us to a detailed view. But in this case now, we are moving from the detailed view to the list view. So I think that is all. Hope it will work. Create. Let me choose the one that will do the capital expenditure. Okay, it has created it, but we should have told it that so we tell it that we want it to navigate to the current window. We're going to test that afterwards. So it's actually working just with that little tweak, right? This is the record we just added. So what we're going to do now is that first of all, I want to show you where we can add an image to this button. So I'll go straight to the application model, go to actions, where is it? Create, let me see something. Oh, okay. So I won't see the name here because of the ID here is in GUID. So let me just give it a meaningful name. So it's very important what you just saw now. IDs, when you want to manipulate things through the application model, it's very important to give them IDs that are unique in the context of the whole application. So that's why you see, I one of the things you might consider doing is giving long descriptive names for some of these variables. By the time we build it, the application model will have picked up the changes. So we can go straight to the application model and go to actions. And we should see it create new cashbook transactions. So I want to give it an image. And somehow, I don't know, do some investigations, but these ones don't show up on the web. So it is these ones that show up. Right? So I want to put save and close there. Function F6. See, so you can see. Let's put the button on this page. So let me just come here and change the category. Let me choose the category and say save. I want you to see the effect of putting the button in a particular category. Because right now it's hidden by default, but I believe is that by the time we put it in that category, it will no more be hidden. So you can see before the end it came out. So this is what we want, but not only that, we want the paint style to be caption and image, yes. And And that is what we allow it to have both the text that we wrote there as create and as well as the image showing up together. Right now is only the image. We want that text to also show. So you can see. So now let's test the navigation back to that screen. And see, it's okay. Let me use overhead now that I know that capital expenditure is working. It's in particular about the dates. So let's say for the budget, which object instance now. All right, let's debug and try to choose the same parameters we have chosen. Okay, I suspected also that trying to get the empty budget code. So what will happen is, where did we do something that got something like this? That's what we need to do here. So we're going to take what is required is that if this is known, you want to return this. So the whole idea is that if it has not been set and the presenter is asking for it at the cost of saving, it needs to return an empty code. And I think we should prompt here. It looks nice. Function F6. There's nothing there. Yes. So that is that. So in the next video, we will now go ahead and work on the edit of an existing record. Right now, it doesn't know how to populate the data, so we're going to now work on that. So see you in the next video.